everyone, welcome to the Slice of Construction podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is Josh Levy, the co-founder and CEO of Document Crunch. Josh, how's it going?
I'm great. How are you today, Jared?
I'm doing well. Let's dive right in. You run up to someone on the street. They don't know what you do. What do you tell them?
What do I tell them? I guess I identify as a lot of things, but I think you're asking about business. Yeah, I started a company, co-founded a company that just really makes construction contracts super easy for anyone in the industry to understand. That's what I would tell someone in the street.
And when we look at why did you want to initially start this company? What was that kind of pivotal moment that made you I want to dive in?
Yeah, it's my whole career's work, and I think that's where a little bit more of a nuanced answer comes into what we're really doing. So look, construction is a super risky industry. I read a study recently that 50% of projects finish over cost or over schedule. What that really means is that in 50% of the time, someone who signed up for that project is going to pay more money to complete the project, or maybe multiple people to complete the project than what they originally thought when they got excited to sign up for that project. That depends on two things and two things only, or who pays, I should say, depends on two things and two things only. What does the contract say? And how did the project team administer that contract during the course of construction? Period. So imagine 50% of the time, someone's paying more, and it's totally based on what the contract says and how it was administered. And that problem, frankly, it's really nice. And now I have studies to support what I lived with my entire career. I'm a long-time construction attorney. It's all I've ever done. Started out in private practice after I was a construction management major. Started out in private practice for the preeminent construction law firm in the US. Did this work my whole career. Ended up going in-house, running a couple of legal departments for large contractors. I've just seen this play out over and over and over again, right? This idea that you need to have a good contract that says the right stuff. But regardless of whether it's good or bad, the team running the project every day better understand and administrate that contract. Or we have a 50% likelihood of paying more than we were supposed to, which is a problem for our industry. And so this is what I've lived with my entire career. What Document Crunch is doing, maybe on not the street legal elevator pitch that I just gave you, but a little bit more nuanced, is we're not only making this super easy and allowing and empowering everyone in our industry to understand what's in their contracts. What we're actually doing is taking that, tethering it to discrete workflows and best practices that we know need to exist, and allowing our industry to get better outcomes because they're embedding best practices around contract compliance as supplemented by our tool. Before our tool existed, and before we really did become the standard in this industry, you really were, in one of two terribly painful situations. The absolute majority of our industry does not have someone like me sitting there in-house, wrapping their arms around every piece of paper that comes in. So you had people kind of just managing this process that maybe weren't super sophisticated. And even in the companies or the bigger companies like me, like the ones I came from that do have these types of resources, you're still left with a bunch of people wearing hard hats every day that are in the job trailer. They're not lawyers, and lawyers certainly don't sit in OAC meetings or walk the job site or manage payment applications or liens or whatever it is every single day. And those folks still need to understand this stuff. So, what we believe we've done is made the ability for our industry to instill best practices around contract compliance affordable, efficient, accessible by everyone. And candidly, Jared, my big vision is when we instill best practices around contract compliance, which actually is code for when Document Crunch is adopted, we will have an industry that is safer, less claims, less careers derailed by bad projects, less litigation, more profitable, better for all stakeholders involved.
I love the mission. I love the vision. I love the passion as you're telling me all of that. That's why I love video when we do these, because you can see your eyes light up. Can you talk to me a little bit about though why? So kind of even beyond automation, right? Why AI will not? Because when people hear anything with AI, they're like, oh no, I'm going to be replaced, right? So why AI will not replace lawyers in construction for contract review, but there's still that importance of human intelligence, right?
Well, first and foremost, Jared, I just want to start with, you haven't heard me say AI once today. You just said it. I actually could care less that we are using AI to power our solutions. In fact, I tell Document Crunch all the time, we're not an AI company. we're a solving contracts compliance for the construction industry company. So let's just start with, I will do anything to realize this mission. AI is just a tool now in the toolbox that is allowing me to accelerate our ability to solve this problem. But if there were better or different ways to solve this problem, I would not be married to AI, though, of course, a little bit fortunate now looking back on it that 5+ years ago, we identified that AI was a useful tool. And now the whole world has lost their minds over AI. So, of course, it's nice to be an AI company in some people's eyes, but that's not what really drives me. I truly don't care about it. In fact, I just posted about this on social media last week, this exact topic. The problem is what drives us, not the technology. All that to be said, I think about our product and I think about how we've oriented our entire playbook or platform around this idea that this is not the equivalent of a self-driving car that you can just take your hands off the steering wheel. What we believe, what we're doing is essentially handing you a set of flippers and goggles so that you can swim maybe faster and see under like murky waters more clearly. But you still better swim or you're going to drown. And that is my fundamental, like I guess, like very like basic way to describe how I think about AI. I think about it as a performance enhancer, but I do not believe we're at a point yet where this can be a total automation. There are certain things to automate, but we think about helping humans do better, higher level work and kind of getting through some of the more mundane stuff that maybe also would be right for human error. But I still think like notions of sound business judgment and context, it's really hard to replicate that, at least today, through the technology. And I do think that like that's what you don't hear a lot. So let's talk about even our category, contract compliance, right? So black or white, the contract may say something, and so we may say, well, you should adhere to the contract. But then there's this nice little thing called business discretion, and someone may make a very knowing decision to not adhere to the contract or to accept a contract that maybe was a little bit riskier than they typically would accept for a myriad of reasons. As an entrepreneur, I make those kind of creative decisions like outside the playbook every single day, right? But what we want to do is we want to enable you to make that decision knowingly and with the benefit of all the information. And that's where AI can help, because by speeding up the ability to get that information or to get deep on issues where maybe you may not have picked up on, something that was going on, we think that we free humans up to do more of that creative business judgment work. But we don't want them to do it willy-nilly. We don't want them to do it arbitrarily. We want people to make good decisions. I mean, that's what being a good business person is. It's making, the best business judgment, but with full availability to all information to inform that decision. And we think AI greatly can help expand your ability to have, access to all available information, but it's not a substitute for business judgment. And so that's how I think about why AI won't replace folks anytime soon.
The way you answered that too was a refreshing take, because usually I'm not the first to bring up a question related to AI, right? Whenever someone is implementing it, they do it. So I actually like your approach though, because at the end of the day, you're trying to solve a problem. If this is that tool in your toolbox that helps you better solve that problem, you use it. And if there's something even more transformative that comes along over the next few years, I'm sure you will at least look into it. And if it is something you should implement, you'll do it, right?
AI is just a component of the overarching product experience that we've created. I mean, AI is not, I would say, the engine. Our product is the engine. AI helps deliver some value to the product experience. But yeah, there's a lot more going on than just AI. I'll just like share one other thing. I don't know if I've ever said this out loud, so you can kind of keep this. Maybe this becomes like a cool new insight that I had as we're discussing like why AI won't replace humans. So imagine that, and again, I'm an entrepreneur now, but I'm a career attorney. If you hire a law firm, Jared, if you and I right now are doing an NDA and you ask a law firm, an outside lawyer to advise you on that NDA, that outside lawyer, just based on my overarching experience, is not going to exercise necessarily business judgment. What they're going to do is they're going to very definitively tell you all the areas where there's risk and what they would flag for you to do. And, if left to their own devices, like they're incentivized to say, here are all of the issues that you need to be aware of. And so we've done our job. But if you could do that at 1,000th of the cost and the time, That's efficient because you're still left in the same position that you were anyway. You're either going to agree with your lawyer's suggestion or you're going to disregard it. I can tell you right now that, like, depending on the transaction itself, as a business person who, has some level of awareness as to what's going on, I do not just accept all suggested revisions to, like, documents that I'm a party to a transaction. So imagine that, like, think about AI just speeding up and lowering the cost of that type of stuff. Anyway, just some
No, I
food.
like that. It's well, I would like your thoughts on this too, because I'm not going to say which firm, but I know, I work with a couple people that they've worked at law firms, and one of them recently told me, because I'm like, you must be implementing like ChatGPT or AI workflows, right? And they're like, leadership is heavily pushing us not to because they're worried we'll get our work done too efficiently and that'll hurt bill. What do you have to say about that type of
Dude,
stuff?
think about how messed up that is. I mean, candidly, that's like asinine. Um, that's one of the problems here. So there's a misalignment of incentives. But let's, like, get away from, like, the law firm model for a second. Let me take this back to our industry. Some of our biggest, or some of our customers are the biggest construction companies in the US right now. I'll just call one out: Balfour Beatty US. Their chief legal officer in the Texas and Arizona region, who is not paid to do hourly work, like you were saying, who is there to be a high level strategic thinker and, wants to do, like, the work that moves the company forward. He's saying that he's now spending 50% less time reviewing contracts for risk. Why? Not because he's using our tool. We're not a replacement for him, but because there's business issues that now his team is empowered to solve on their own using our tool. And so the scope of what he's reviewing has been lessened. That's the power of this. This idea that the contract is a black box that these people say, oh, like, we want to retain all the power around because we're these oracles of information. Like, that's ridiculous. There are issues that, like, people in our industry are smart enough and capable enough, with just a little bit of confidence, a little bit of structure, a little bit of a nudge, a little bit of an understanding, a little bit of context. They can do some of this themselves. Period. And that's what we're trying to effectuate. And by the way, the byproduct for that, Jared, is when you empower the business people to do that, especially in construction, guess what happens? They take ownership of it, they take agency in it, they build awareness around it, and they make less mistakes when they have to administer the project 2 years after the thing was negotiated. That's what we're trying to do here.
That's exciting. I like how you did that approach too. That makes sense. Like the chief legal officer, them streamlining their work versus just the individual law firm, and specifically for your use case as well. Can you talk me? You mentioned this earlier a little bit, like in terms of like de-risking and basically with contract intelligence, like how the industry could be de-risked when it comes to contract intelligence and data. But I would love for you to dive into maybe sharing some of these ideas on how firms can leverage data to just quickly understand, track, and negotiate faster contract terms. You mentioned a little bit earlier on, but I want to take it back to that.
Yeah, so let me just walk through, like, the 5, like, areas of what I call our best practices playbook, and then maybe I'll help you. Maybe then the data question will become more clear. So number 1, you should understand and document the risk profile of a project before you bid it. That's best practice number 1. Best practice number 2, you should confirm that after the project is awarded that you've actually negotiated the contract pursuant to the risk profile that you wanted to negotiate it to. Best practice number 3, you should arm the project team with the relevant contract insights as the project is kicking off. I know these may sound like common sense, but, like, this needs to happen. Best practice number 4, you should make sure that your project teams has continuous access to easy contract insights during the course of construction. Best practice number 5, you should bulletproof and give a supporting hand to those workflows that the project teams have to go through every day that require contract compliance. Those are, like, the 5 areas that we're trying to really, kind of, like, put structure and best practices around to give construction companies peace of mind that they're actually doing the right thing at these various, like, parts of the project lifecycle. So how does data, like, help with some of these areas? First and foremost, I mean, I'll tell you about some of the work we're doing with like the National Electrical Contractors Association. What if you knew when you were bidding or negotiating a job that a term was actually not acceptable to like 90% of your peers over the last 2 years? And it's very common in our industry. I know this. I'm an industry guy for the owner or the contractor or some stakeholder to put a gun to the bidder's head and say, if you don't accept this, I'm going to go to the next bidder. What if we knew? What if data could actually like inform that decision? What if we knew, because we're working with some sureties and insurance carriers now, that contract with this risk profile led to like higher likelihoods of litigation or higher likelihoods of claims, and we could start putting some data and costs around that. So 10% more likely to have litigation with a term that looks like this. Average cost of litigation is $500,000. I'm just making this up. Maybe at 10% likelihood at $500,000, maybe we should just put a $50,000 contingency line item on it if you're forcing us to accept this term. Maybe that starts to drive how you negotiate the contract. So that's like one area where I think data should be used. What I don't think people think about enough, because this is like also what we're doing every day, is what if we could provide, a real knowledge center around what your company's history was or background was. That's super important for internal knowledge sharing, and that's data as well. And then finally, how we're starting to think about things are starting to get more proactive around helping with risk management. Jared, we see that the schedule just changed in your product. Like, I don't know if you've seen, we recently announced a huge partnership with Procore. Kind of like where we're going. Hey, we noticed that the schedule changed in this one module. Section 42 says that this is a delay event. Section 47 says you have to give notice within 3 days. Do you want to generate a notice to the responsible party? Let us help you with that. Boom. But now we're starting to use data to start to drive outcomes. Hey, back office, headquarters, we know best practice is to arm your teams with insights around the contract at project kickoff. What if we could help start to tell you how effective we're doing? We have certain customers now telling us this is data because some of our reporting and stuff. We're increasing the readership. I'm doing a webinar tomorrow with Commodore Builders, a nice sized contractor out in the Northeast. They claim that their readership has gone up 75% with their project teams because they're kicking off their projects using Document Crunch. They know that that's a best practice, and now they have data to support that. What if one day we can tell the industry that those projects that kick off with Document Crunch are safer than those that don't, because we're verifying that the team is doing what they need to do to understand the critical issues? So I think that data is a pretty broad category. We're already seeing it surface into a lot of the uses of our product, and I think we'll continue to do that. I do envision a day where, frankly, owners are requiring the use of Document Crunch, sureties are requiring the use of Document Crunch, because you're safer, your project is safer when the parties are empowered to understand what's going on and are like starting to bulletproof some of these workflows.
I love your passion, Josh, and I'm so excited for what you're building. And the examples and the pictures that you're able to paint when you're talking through this stuff are great. So I really appreciate that. As we wrap up here, what's next for the company that you can share with us here today?
Yeah, so we just really entered our dawn of empowering project teams, right? We started off, I always had this vision, but we started off as a back office kind of solution that was doing that initial kind of risk and negotiation support. But I always knew that I wanted to jump and build this bridge into projects. And now you're seeing this in space. We've had just thousands and thousands and thousands of projects now using our product. So that's amazing. It's all happened in the last, call it 6 months. We're going to get way deeper into that part of the industry. So you'll see there's some really exciting product announcements coming out. Our first automated workflow solutions will be live here in the next few weeks. And you'll see over the course of this year, us just get much deeper into automating certain workflows and providing just-in-time insights at the moment that project teams need us. Almost like an angel coming over your shoulder and saying, hey, Jared, before you do that thing, remember that there's a contract that we should comply with, and we can help you to ensure that you don't go to the devil and not do the right thing or fail to comply. And so think about that. Like, that's what we want to be. And you'll see us get much deeper and much tighter into those workflow support and just-in-time insights for project teams during the day-to-day administration of their projects. And then, yeah, from there, I'd say let's check back in. The company's growing so fast right now. There's some other things that are in the lab that I'm not really comfortable talking about yet, but we have a lot of work ahead of us. And I think one of the prizes of being, having gotten off to this start and having had the traction that we've had, I mean, customers are just pulling product out of us every single day. It's incredible to see how much feedback we're getting because of the use of our product. And so we have like a very clear direction. And frankly, we've got great partners that are helping reinforce that direction every day. And so I think you'll see we've had a period of hyper growth over the last few years, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. So you'll just start to see a much deeper offering from us across the project lifecycle.
Well, Josh, I'm really excited for you and the team, and we'll definitely keep an eye out for those additional updates, and we'll cover it when those do, when the news of that does come out. But thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast today, and we're wishing you the best of luck.
Hey, thanks so much, Jared. I appreciate you having me.